is taken by the company you work for.
Yeah.
So, and I thought that was unjust. I thought that was unfair. I never got an increase in pay or anything. Eventually, it went into a flat spin. And Ford said to me, "We're in now." We both were asked to resign. You understand?
Yeah.
Because the establishment would have been held responsible. So I was looking for justice. I thought it was unfair. And then I realized there's no justice, that free enterprise ships things out because it costs less than making it here in America. That cigarettes kill people, but the government gets a good piece of the action. That means they didn't care for people. That was the evidence I had. And whiskey and all that junk food which goes out to people, and then the artificial contamination of plants by genetics without long-term testing. That was dangerous, to genetically alter a plant where you could grow things organically, but never a mono plant system. You have to have mixtures of different plants that reinforce one another. So I began to turn away from commercial agriculture, commercial science. You understand? I was interested in science, but they were owned by corporations. Scientists made nuclear weapons. A guy named Albert Einstein wrote a formula, and he helped, and the Szilard and Oppenheimer worked on the atom bomb. And in the Bible there was something useful. It said, "Cast ye not pearl before swine." You know what that means?
No.
Don't give people things that they're not ready to use intelligently. So technology became a lever of the armed forces and government, where they worked on killing machines, because they were patriotic. In Germany, the German scientists, some of them left, but most of them stayed and made weapons. In Italy, the Catholic engineers made airplanes against America. In America, the American Catholics made planes. And the priests used to dip their stick in holy water and bless the airplanes in the wartime. Whereas in the Bible it says, "Thou shalt not kill."
Yeah.
Love thine enemy. Turn the other.
I always thought the irony of having priests and chaplains in the military was
I'm just
delicious
telling you
irony.
My background, which I think you ought to know.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
just didn't come up with these ideas.
No.
So the way I was raised, I was forced to encounter those things.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That you've seen quite a few things in your 94 years. So I need to ask, one of the bogeymen of the whole truth movement is David Rockefeller. You and him are the same age. What is the secret of your longevity?
There's no secret. There's just a lot of work to do, and I don't think in terms of eating to live. I eat.
Yeah.
And I like certain foods, and I dislike other foods. But I was an organic vegetarian for years, until I read a book by Chunder Bose, which I never heard of.
Good name, Chunder.
Sir Jagadish Chunder Bose. He's from the Bose Institute in India. He went to the science convention in England, and he explained what he was doing, and they laughed him out. He was a plant physiologist. And years later, some British scientists went to his lab, and they found out what he was doing was because what he was doing is so radical. He took some living tissue and stretched it across two terminals. He put a candle on it underneath it to see if he could register pain. And he had no oscilloscope in those days, but he had everything projected on the wall by a mirror, which moved very slightly, but on the wall he got the patterns of an oscilloscope.
I see.
And he said that copper wire showed the same reaction as living substance. So he had difficulty when a person said, "What between life and non-life?" He said, "Well, the sun is inorganic, but without it, all the plants would die, and man eventually would die, and all the animals, and that's inorganic." So he failed to separate the organic from the inorganic. They're all part of a common chain. And his book was so different that it changed me, and I saw cancer on rabbits, vegetarians, trees, dinosaur bones. I began to look into things. Then I said, what about the things that are beyond science, the physical, the metaphysical, the telekinesis, you know what that is?
Yes.
Moving objects without touching them.
Yeah, which George
And
Lucas touched
so many
upon.
people that believed in that. I said, "Jacque, why don't you check that out?" Then I read about a guy named, I forgot his name offhand, but anyway. Astoria. And he was from, I think it was from India, and he said he never used a telephone. He has the power of telepathy. And he said he never used a telephone in his life. He can always read a human mind. So I said, if he can do that, to hell with science. What am I busting my butt for? It takes a long time. So we brought him, I and about 10 other people brought him from India, America. And I said, sir, if you can read my mind just once, I will shout it from the highest towers and tell everybody about it.
Yeah.
He says, well, I do it all the time. So I said to him, if you're going to read my mind, do you want a full moon? What are your major options?
Yeah.
He said, no, any time. So I said, do you want me to face the east or west? I wanted to give him the best conditions.
Yeah.
So he said, no, just think of something. I said, what if it's technical? He said, well, I won't use the terminology you use, but I will describe the event. I said, that's fair enough. But before that, I noticed him working with people. He was talking to a woman about 78 years old, and it says there was a death in your family, either 3 months or the past 3 years. There's always a death in the family when you're 74 years old. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So he seemed to me he was working with probability. You know what I mean?
This Astoria guy who was working
that
with
doesn't
probability.
mean that he can't do that.
No, but he can't prove it. Yeah.
Now, so let me tell you what I did. I pictured a little white mouse, due to my background, eating an elephant, not getting any larger, and walking out of the building. If there's telepathy, if he gave me that
He figured
answer,
that out. Yeah.
I'm convinced.
Yeah.
But he didn't give me an answer. So I felt maybe that didn't work that time. Maybe he can really do that. So I then pictured a carpenter's saw made of metal. Can you picture that?
Mm-hmm.
With 2 legs. And it walks into the forest like this.
Uh-huh.
And a tree looks at the saw, and the tree cuts the saw in half. That's outside of probability. You know what I mean? If he got that, there's telepathy.
Yeah.
He didn't get it. He didn't get anything I thought of. But he did, when a young girl came on, there's only 6 questions or so. Why don't I have as many dates as my sister? You know, and he'd give a typical story, but he never did any real mind reading.
No.
He did work with probability. And when the girl leaned forward, he was on the right track. She leaned back, he changed the subject. Then I met another couple that said they do telepathy every day, and had them come over to my home. And I said, would you mind demonstrating it? The guy said, no. He said, I want you to go from your own books, bring out 6 or 7 or 10 movie actors or 10 presidents. And he says, don't even whisper the name, just point. And I point to James Fillmore.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time I ever met the guy. I said, now you call this guy in England Mr. Throckmorton. You know this story? I called Mr. Throckmorton in England. He said, I see a president with 2 puffs of hair on the side, and his name is James Fillmore. And I pointed to a movie actor. I think it was Gary Grant, if you know who he is. Anyway, I pointed, said, now call this guy in New Jersey, Smithson. I called him. He says, I see a tall, skinny actor, an Englishman named Gary Grant, right away. That was the best I've seen up to then. Here's how it works. Before I went out to investigate that, I read everything I can on show business, mental telepathy. Hundreds of books at the library, and you can get them at Magician Society. So you're not qualified as an investigator unless you know something about the field first. Here's what I found out. He has a friend in England named Throckmorton. If you ask Mr. Smith, he's got a list. Smith means Gary Grant. Johnson means this actor. So the way he tells his president depends on the name you ask for. Do you understand that or not?
So I just want to do some comedy relief. Someone's phone just went off. We're going to have to scrap the whole interview. I'm sorry. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. No, but
Understand?
I do, yes.
So then I could not deal with that. Then 2 priests came to my seminar, and they said to me, Jacque, the trouble with you is you want to work in the material world. There are things beyond the material world.
Yeah.